Aubrey. Welcome everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. Quick show of hands. First timers? Any first time here? Okay, so quite a few of you. So welcome. Lauren explained what we do here. Sounds like people have come far and wide. I know there's one person that's flown all the way from the United States to be here tonight, which she is Alyssa. There you go. She's that drunk girl that hit the gong earlier. But again, welcome. Lauren didn't introduce me, but my name is Brad. So I'm the founder of Haymarket HQ, but yeah, Lauren and Duco run the place these days. So I'm going to get pretty much straight into it. And I've been lucky through this Inspiration Series to interview a lot of influential people, but I've never interviewed an influencer before, so I'm really excited tonight to just hear more from Aubrey. So I'm going to start off just with some simple questions. And I like to try and treat this like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, so the questions get harder as we go along. And once I'm satisfied that you've answered the question well enough. So firstly, Aubrey, introvert or extrovert?
Ambivert.
Okay.
Do you guys know what an ambivert is? It's like a mix between the two. So like I can be an introvert sometimes, but then extrovert when I need to be and socialise and that sort of thing. But then most of the time I'm an introvert, so I like to work by myself and get fueled by energy after a big night out. So definitely ambivert.
Okay, sounds to me like you're a bit confused. Late sleeper or early riser?
Ooh, both. I don't get enough sleep. I sleep really, really late and then I have to wake up really, really early. So yeah, both.
Okay. You don't have any eye bags, so you look pretty good.
Concealer.
Okay, we're doing well so far. Who do you religiously follow? And so I think you've got almost something like 40,000 followers on Instagram alone. Who do you follow?
I like to follow websites that have, I guess, a presence in the US. And so there's two. There's Mag Repeller, which is a kooky sort of fashion website, and then Into the Gloss, which is a beauty website. And then I also, my favourite blogger is Garen Story, who's like a French photographer, illustrator, blogger as well.
I've got you down as a digital nomad, an influencer, a travel blogger, a brand collaborator, and now an international book author. How do you actually describe what you do to people in a concise way?
Yeah, I guess this is a question that I get asked a lot when I'm traveling. And so when I first introduce myself, I don't really like to get into too much detail because then everyone kind of asks you to expand on it. So I either say travel photographer or I work in marketing. And I think in this generation anyway, you can be so many things. So then maybe sometimes I'll say like the ultimate slashy because it's / travel photographer / marketing / creative consultant / so many other things. So it's a mixed bag, really.
Okay. So, I mean, most of us have the problem that our parents have no idea what we do. What do your parents think you do?
My parents think that, well, they actually don't really know what I do and how I make money and how I can do this because they're very traditional. And my mum still tells me to this day, oh, you know, why don't you go study that nursing course? And I'm like, what? I've done so many of these things and, you know, it's still not obvious to you that you can do something and be successful online and that this generation is a completely new generation of making an income and building a career. And so how I explain it is just pretty much I create content for brands. And so if that is to do with writing, if it's a piece of content, or if it's styling a product, then she understands it. And so it's really my mum that asks all these questions. My dad's kind of, you know, really easygoing, like, oh, yeah, cool, like, you've got this coming out. But it's really my mum, and I think explaining to her is a lot more difficult than saying, in my previous roles is in PR and marketing is that, I'm going to an office and I work in fashion marketing. So now it's easier to just say, I create content for brands. And yeah.
Okay, so what was their reaction? What was your parents' reaction when you first told them that you wanted to quit a stable job, working in a company and do this?
I think I have always been the quite unconventional person in my family, and it's a little bit unusual because none of my family has really gone into sort of entrepreneurial roles or started a company or done anything like what I wanted to do. So my brother is in finance, he was in finance, and now he's in car sales, and my mum and my dad are in the same sort of field. So the creative industry isn't really something that they're aware of, but they've gotten to know it from what I have done. And I think the first reaction was just, my mum's really supportive in that sort of way. So it's like, whatever makes you happy, do that. And I'm doing it, so yeah.
And your dad again just said whatever?
Yeah, my dad was like, yeah, you do.
Okay. So, before you started doing this, you had various roles in other companies. Can you just briefly explain the kind of roles you were doing?
Yeah, so my previous roles has mainly been in PR and marketing. I was PR and marketing in mainly fashion, and then I did a couple of other e-commerce sort of startup websites actually, just to help them grow their brand and really get into the influencer side of things. So creating campaigns for the companies that I would work for, one is Lime and Tonic, one is Porsche, one is the Wonderland, which is like a marketing agency, and they were all quite, besides Porsche, they were all quite startup in that sort of sense. And so that small business was really appealing to me because I felt that you could learn so much rather than being in a small company.
Okay, so how did those experiences prepare you for what you're doing now?
I studied PR and marketing just because I think I wanted to make my mum happy and say that, yeah, I'm going to study something. And so if it was one topic, it was PR and marketing because I knew that in any company, there is marketing behind it. And any company that I got into, it was marketing. And I think looking back on hindsight now, I'm very, I like the study of like human being and why you make decisions, so like the psychological side, and then I'm also really interested in the business side and why you make those decisions from that. And so when you put those two together, that's marketing. And I feel like, all right, well, I didn't understand that back then, but now I do, and any company needs marketing. So that's what I chose to study.
Yeah, okay. So, currently there's a Love Assembly, which has been around for several years.
Yeah.
There's the recent book. But do you think that the success of those projects would have occurred or would have been different had you not experienced those other jobs at Lime and Tonic and so forth?
Definitely. I think that when you work for other companies and you are in the marketing department, you learn that your job isn't you. And so this is the company that I'm working for and I'm doing the marketing for that. And so that gave me the insight of how to market a brand and how to grow a brand and how to develop a brand. And so when I decided to create a brand of my own, I then at least knew that this is how I market a brand that is, me as the face, but I can completely put myself out of that. And those sort of skills are something that I learned through my previous roles. And I do definitely think that, having those previous roles has led to the success of building my own brand, because at the end of the day, if you wanted to create something, like I was talking to a girl earlier, you are essentially creating a brand. And so to be able to grow that, you need to understand the target market, your audience, what your brand soul is, and all that sort of stuff. So definitely those roles have helped.
Okay. So you're answering the questions pretty easily now, so we might add some challenging aspects to it now. We might open up the Slido, Lauren, if we can. So if you do have any questions that you want to type, and I can't guarantee I'll ask all of them, but if there's some good ones there, I'll definitely ask them, and we'll make things a little bit harder for Aubrey. So I'll keep going.
Do I get any lifelines?
Yeah.
Have you got any friends?
Do I have any friends?
38,000, I think, on Instagram. The next question I wanted to ask, so other than being a good photographer or having a good eye, what other skills do you think are needed to be successful in what you're doing?
Definitely self-motivation. That's probably the number one thing that I find is the most difficult when you start something that is yourself, because you are your own boss and you're the only one that's going to tell you what to do. So if you want to sleep in all day, then cool, yeah, you can do that and sleep in all day, but are you going to get anything done? Not really. So I think that's definitely the number one thing, self-motivation and having that determination to succeed. But I guess in a more practical sense, I think having just a really good direction of where you want to go and really identifying that from the very beginning.
Okay, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, in this kind of role, direction's hard to grasp because things are changing so rapidly. There hasn't been a long history of this role. And so, in a way, you're having to be flexible and, you don't know what's around the corner. So, how do you get that direction? How can you look forward far enough to plan? And how did you do it in terms of, when you quit your job and you had to basically become an influencer, that you didn't have presumably a lot of people to follow?
Yeah, I think, what was the question again? Direction? We're talking about direction?
Yeah, direction. How do you get that direction when it's hard to get direction?
Okay, so I guess for me, I reverse engineered everything. So I asked myself, well, from early stages, I was really into blogging and it was something that I just did for fun. And so I asked myself from the very beginning, what do I want to achieve? Because I'm so unsatisfied with my job, it's not giving me enough creative freedom. And so from the very beginning, my direction was to be able to travel anywhere in the world and work online, making a living doing so. And then I eventually got down to what are my interests. And my interests were travel photography and styling and connecting with people. And so then I tied that all into one just to really get the direction of where I wanted to go. And then after knowing that, I think everything is pretty easy from there. You know what brands that you want to work with in order to make that happen. You find out how you can make money online. You find out who you need to connect with to be able to get more insight. And then you just really go down your own path and create that direction if you know what you want to achieve from the very beginning.
I might go to the second question from Anonymous. So, other than brushing your teeth and going to the toilet, do you have any morning or nightly rituals?
My morning ritual is always a good stretch. I love to do yoga and meditation, and I got my 200-hour Ashtanga yoga because it's really easy to sort of fall out of the routine of the gym and that sort of thing. So Ashtanga yoga is a self-practice, and so I like to have a good stretch, and I like to do Ashtanga yoga. And the nightly rituals, I am very big on my skincare, and I like to exfoliate and get my skin clear and prepped up and hydrated, and then put some eye cream on so I can, cover up those bags, and then go to sleep.
Okay. Life is often about choices and making sacrifices. So, in order to become a digital nomad and to get paid to travel, what sacrifices have you had to make in other areas of your life?
I think in terms of let's say, personal side, a lot of sacrifices to do with relationships. Giving up a relationship, a really long-term relationship, has really been a really and then when it comes to, I guess, the more professional side, it's really about the sacrifice of knowing that you're not going to have a stable income, you're not going to have a stable routine, and you have to sort of make that happen for yourself.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess earning the income requires a different discipline, and so you could have a passion for travel and a passion for photography, but there's other skills required to turn that passion into a living. So I'm going to go to James' question. What's the most memorable project or brand you've worked with, and how did you get the gig? How do you monetize what you're doing?
Yeah, I think the most memorable project, there's been a lot around the world, and when you go on these experiences, say for example, most of them are with tourism boards, I go and I take photographs for that tourism board, and then sometimes it's on my own and sometimes it's with other influencers around the world. And so I would meet people from Mexico or Brazil or the States, and those are always memorable because then you create fun times. It's like you're just traveling with friends and getting to know people and creating content. But I think my most memorable would have to be my book, which is just published. It's called Wonder Love, and it's everything. It encompasses everything to do with this world that I've been living in, and it has allowed me to express that, not in only a creative way, but also like through the photos, but also through words written that have been written all over the world. And so that's been very memorable, and to have it physically in a book is incredible. It's like, whoa, this is in real life, man. Everything's on such a, on a digital level, it's on a screen, and so to have things in real life, and I'm going into like every gimmick store now, I'm like, it's here. And that's just been so surreal. And how did I get that? I was approached by my publisher, which is in Melbourne, and then I had meetings in the UK when I went to the UK, and they've also got an office in the US. And so they found me online and approached me to create a travel photography book, but I went back and I said, I have so many things to share, I need to write as well. And I had to pitch them because when someone, like a publisher, approaches you with an idea, they're like, this is what you need to do, but I'm so strong in, I guess, my brand direction and knowing what I want to achieve that I said to myself, I need to pitch them that this is why you need to accept me doing words, and you just need to trust everything that I've got here as a proposal, because I know my audience, I've seen trends online, and I'm speaking to a girl that is me. So I got approached by that, but I think that sometimes you don't need to follow what other brands are saying. Like, you need to also have input and say that I want to do this because of this. Like, not just say it just for the hell of it, but say it because you have substance and you have something to really stand by. And I think being approached by them was obviously, and when I got the email, I was like, holy crap, yes, but then it took me into a whole world of publishing, which is a completely different industry. It's something new to learn, so that was exciting and definitely memorable.
Okay, so when you talk about, you don't want to always follow what other people are doing, and so there's an element of wanting to stand out from the crowd and stand out from other influences. So there was a question there down at the bottom. So many travel bloggers nowadays. How did you make sure you could stand out? So again, how do you make sure that you are seen and your brand is clear and evident compared to everything else that's out there?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of travel bloggers out there, and this could be very obvious, but it's about the quality of content that you produce. And so any sort of content that you produce, you should be super proud to produce that because you're representing your own brand. But I think that to be able to stand out, even if you don't have, there's other travel bloggers out there that have a way bigger following, but what is unique to you? And we can always say that that's ourselves and that's what we have to offer. But I think it's definitely the content production and then standing out in different avenues. So in this sort of space, everything is so focused on Instagram, which is an amazing app, and it's an amazing social networking site that allows you to connect with other creatives around the world, but there's so much more to that. And I think that's something that where I've stood out in. And so from the early stages, I was contributing content to Qantas Insider, to Marie Claire, and so it gave me something that was offline as a presence, as a content producer for other brands, and not just on Instagram, because that can change, and algorithms will change, and you lose your market, and that's like a whole different other topic. But I think it's whatever you do offline also matters, because that will lead you to other opportunities. And so being approached by Condé Nast Traveler in the States was a big turning point, because that was a turning point where I was like, oh, I'm not really doing anything of value on my website, and no one's really reading this. Is it even good? Like, what am I doing? But then to be approached by, I had never been to New York at the time, and to be approached by the editor-in-chief because they were revisiting their whole digital stage was a big push for me, and a big just realization that, you're getting noticed from the other side of the world, somewhere that you haven't ever been before, and that people are out there online watching. So to be able to produce content for such a big travel publication like that allowed me to also open up other doors. And I think it's the difference in content production and really focusing on something that, because I knew what my target audience is, it was this, mid-20s girl. She likes to travel, she likes to go to the markets, I created a brand, Sol, and I talk about that a lot, because then that's the content that I'm going to produce for her. And it's not to backpackers, it's not to couples that are, luxurious travelers, it's for her. And that is a big generation in social media these days. So, it's just really honing that and knowing that there's also offline, and not everything is revolved around that. So.
At what point did you realise that people would follow you or listen to your opinion? I mean, was there a point in time when you thought, hey, actually, what I'm doing is relevant, and I can make a living out of this?
Yeah, I think it was when Condé Nast approached me in 2014, and so I launched the Love Assembly at the end of 2012, and then from 2013 to mid-2014, it was purely, I was still working full-time, and I was doing it because I loved it. And when you go out traveling, then you take photos, and you like to take photos more. And then it just naturally came to me. I would want to go to cute cafes. I would want to take nice photos, because that's just how my eye saw things. So the turning point was definitely when Condé Nast Traveler approached me, because it was a travel publication in the States that produced, their publishing house produces Vogue, produces Cosmopolitan. It wasn't just someone, not that I didn't believe in myself, but there comes a point where you do so much, you give so much, and then when you get nothing in return, it's like, oh, am I doing the right thing? But to have someone from across the world call me and say that we want to get you on board to produce content because we're going into the digital arm of things, that really gave me, I guess, belief in myself to say that you are doing something right. And keep going. It's not the end yet, and so that was definitely a turning point.
Yeah, okay. So did the Love Assembly start on a sort of as a side project, and then you reached the point where you were confident enough to quit the job and take it full time? Is that sort of how it worked, or did you just quit your job and decide this is what I'm going to do?
It was, I can't really say that, oh, I quit my job and this is what I wanted to do. It started as, because I was working in PR and marketing in fashion, I had a lot of friends that were doing creative things, and that's how it was born, to interview people that were doing creative things that they absolutely loved to do in life. And then I quit that job when I was working for a PR agency in fashion, and I was like, yeah, I just want to travel. So I took a couple of months off to travel, and I was doing what I'm doing now, taking photos and, and writing about it and blogging about it. But then it was when I moved to Melbourne that I was also working on the Love Assembly, but I had Porsche, so I was doing the social media marketing for Porsche, which was like their Facebook and Instagram, but then also they were launching Women with Drive, which is also a lifestyle luxury publication. And so they saw what I did with the Love Assembly, and they took me on board to grow that and really be like the creative direction and content for that website that they were building. And so that was pretty cool because it was in the automotive industry that I wouldn't say that I'm like super passionate about. I mean, nice cars, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And I got to drive a lot of their cars, but it was mainly just saying to them, I have the Love Assembly that I'm also working on, and you have to understand that it's going to take me places, so I can't really realistically be in the office all of the time. And they loved what I did with the Love Assembly. It's all online. So they said, yeah, like, happy to do that, just as long as the work gets done. And I think companies now can be quite lenient with that, especially if you're in the marketing field, because you can do it online. Like, you can create content for them and then just schedule it to post. So it gives you the freedom to ask or even like request to be working somewhere else, or not even in the actual office. So yeah, once I did that, it was still quite stable because that was, a retainer. And then at the end of 2015, that's when I said, okay, in 2016, I want to focus purely on the Love Assembly and growing that, because I know that I need that time to be able to grow that. And that's when so it's a slow progression, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and you manage the risks pretty well.
Yeah, I think being aware of those risks as well, because I was still quite hesitant with doing that. So it was just a slow sort of progression of leaving other work, other jobs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Proudest accomplishment?
My book, Wonder Love, which is right here at the front.
Yeah. You should have been more prepared to have one at the front. But can you just hold up that book? So, and I'm going to embarrass the lady in front because I know she went out just before this to buy the book, didn't she?
Yeah, I did.
So
I
think she wants to selfie.
Yes. Yeah.
So if we talk about the book, and I've had a quick read of the book actually. So, in the book you ask, you say that there are 6 questions you should ask yourself. I've noted down 3 of those questions. So the first question is, if money were no object, what would you like to spend your days doing? And for you it was?
Traveling, taking photos and connecting with people, meeting people.
Yeah. The second question that stood out to me was, what sort of impact do you want to make on the world?
Sort of impact was to inspire people to really get out of their comfort zone. And I think to say that is so easy, like you can do something and it inspires someone, but I think when it's backed up with substance and someone that actually does it and has that example, then it's much more impactful, because, man, it's scary, but there's so many risks, but then there's so many, highs that come with it, and to really lead by example, I think, is the impact that I want to show people, because it's so cliche how we say, like, you only have... What's that saying? I don't even know. You only have one life. Yeah, it's so cliche, but it's so true at the same time, because then I would rather spend my days like really fighting for something that I want to do in life than be miserable in something. And so that's just I think I wanted to show that as an example to really be impactful rather than just say it.
Yeah, okay. And you also talk about the importance of stepping out of your comfort zone,
yeah.
because that's where you grow, that's where the magic happens. What's allowed you or given you the confidence to step out of your comfort zone and do the things, travel to dangerous countries on your own, things like that?
I think it's just, okay, so when I left for my first solo trip in Melbourne, there is this cafe, it's by Alain de Botton. He's like one of my favorite philosophers, favorite authors and entrepreneurs, and he's got the School of Life. And so he's got a cafe in there, and I went there before going on my first solo trip. And there's a book, like I was working from there, and there's a book there that I opened it up, and it was just a notebook of people writing letters, and anyone could read it. And I turned to a page, and I was going to write on the next page about, just a little note on, I'm going on my first solo trip and that sort of thing. But I just wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I said, I'm so scared to do this. My lease has ended, everything is just telling me to do this. And I just said to myself, like, feel it, feel the fear, but then do it anyway. And that's what I signed off as in that notebook. To anyone that was fearful of doing things, just feel it, because it's okay if we feel it. It just shows that we're human beings and that we have emotions, but then to do it anyway, because it's so worth it when you do it. And then you can just see how much growth happens when you feel the fear and then do it anyway.
And you get momentum, I guess, from those experiences. You get more confidence.
Definitely, yeah. You get more confidence, you just realize so many things because you only have yourself, and it's empowering and liberating.
Okay, so still on the book covers a lot of different aspects. There's practical tips, so even for guys, how should a guy dress when they're travelling? And admittedly, when I went backpacking, I dressed as a backpacker. You could spot me a mile away. So I did not consider fashion at all. But interestingly, you talk about natural colours and blending in with the cultures and stuff like that. Any other tips you want to give around dressing?
Styling? For men or for
styling
women?
Yes.
For men or for women, would you say? Because predominantly, I speak to women, but men, I guess, for men and just a wardrobe in general, I think it's always about the foundation. So having like a good base of colours and pieces that are so versatile, because we're limited to such, to the luggage space that we have. So having that good foundation of base, that's a really versatile colour palette, and I mean, like what you're wearing right now is things that I would pack for a guy.
I was actually inspired by the book because it's in photos.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's natural colours. You can wear like mix and match the colours and pieces. So yeah, spot on. 10 out of 10.
Thank you. Yes, the book is worth buying. And would you say the same thing for women there?
For women, definitely. I think the main thing is, especially when you want to be, when you're taking photos on the road as well, you want that good foundation of bases, of colour palette and also pieces, but then thinking about the little things that can really change up your look. And I talk a lot about accessories, so earrings. Earrings can change your look so much, and they're so small, they don't weigh anything. And I have this thing where whenever I travel to a new country, I get a new pair of earrings every time I go to a new destination that really best represents that place. So if it's like from Mexico, then like beaded ones, and if it's from Colombia, it was like a feather one. And that's something that I take away from every country, just because it's so little, it can change your look instantly. And then I also talk about beauty tips and hairstyles, because if you're wearing the same thing and you put on a red lip, that instantly changes your look. And if you put your hair up or to the side or in the middle, they're these little things that I think we don't think about. And they can definitely change your look when you're traveling on the road and limited.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely don't think about those things. And so it's fair to say that you're living your passions, that your work has become your interest. In saying that, the danger could be that your work starts to interfere with what you used to enjoy, and so the lines between work and travel get blurred. How do you manage and how do you make sure that that doesn't happen with yourself and your work?
Yeah, to give you a background of how things would work is that, say for example, if I have a job with a tourism board, then I have objectives to achieve and content deliverables. So it would be X amount of photos, X amount of Instagram posts, X amount of written words, and that varies from like job to job. And so if I'm on a job with the tourism board, it's just like any other job. You have your hours, and once you achieve those deliverables, then you consider yourself that job is done. Then there's the other side of things. So because it allows you to sort of travel from anywhere around the world, you can book a trip to somewhere and you can create content while you're traveling to use for something else. So say for example, I went on a trip with a couple of friends recently and my boyfriend to Bali, and it was purely for pleasure. There was no hotels or tourism boards to really attend to and nothing to submit to them. But then at the same time, you're in Bali, so you're taking photos anyway, and I've always taken photos anyway, so just getting those shots and knowing that that could be potentially for, another article, or that could be for a tourism board to pitch to them and say that, this is a travel photograph that I've taken. But I think that it's really just balancing that, and if it's for tourism boards, then it's already knowing you're on there for that job, do that. Once that job's done, you can be offline. And then if it's with personal, like friends and family, then it's really just treating that as a trip that you would have with friends and family, but you're always taking photos anyway. So I like to think of it as when we're traveling, everyone's taking photos anyway, but it's just what do you do with that photo afterwards? You could sell that photo, you could pitch it in an article. So really, everyone's taking photos, so the next step afterwards is something that you can do with it.
Yeah. I like the bottom one actually. How do you combat loneliness when you're overseas, away from friends, or when you're stuck in a rut?
I haven't really felt loneliness as per se. I enjoy my time on my own, and I found sweetness in my solitude, and I think it's something when you travel solo, you learn to accept that and be comfortable in your own company. And I have completely, been so in love with that sometimes it makes it hard to switch off and then travel with a whole bunch of people, because you're so used to doing your own thing and being on your own, and when you like that, it can be a bit difficult. So I don't think I could say that I've really felt lonely on the road, but I think I felt that in a couple of places where I've been in a hotel and it's not really somewhere that you would meet people and be able to speak to people as a hostel would provide. And so it's really based on your accommodation and how you can approach that. And then also taking classes or joining tour groups, if that's something that, if you've been traveling solo for a while and you want to do something with a group of people, then booking that on the road can be pretty easy. You can just do like a 3-day trip with a group of people on a tour group, and then I guess that would solve it.
Yeah, okay, and I can echo those thoughts. In my early 20s, I did a lot of solo backpacking. It wasn't that long ago. But even though I was traveling alone, I was rarely alone. So, you're always meeting people. So, yeah, and, just having lots of DNNs with people, if that's your thing. I didn't mind that. But and I found I learned a lot about myself through that process. So, definitely something we both recommend.
Yeah.
go to another question from the board, I think. This one's a tricky one to answer, but I think there's probably a few of us, myself included, thinking about how can I get started if I want to do something similar to what you're doing.
I've kind of got a mixed bag of things that I do. So I think face value online, you can see it's the Love Assembly, it's an online influencer, but then there's so many things that goes on behind the scenes as well that you have to do. And so to get started, really, I would like to call it more as creating a brand and developing a brand, and that's something that I'd really be interested in. And to get started is really knowing that brand, like even if it's you as a personal brand, knowing what that brand is, because you don't want to, well, it's not even really good business practice to want to tailor to everyone. You need to know what your brand is, who your target audience is, and create that brand soul, like I've created for the Love Assembly, of knowing, you know, who you want to target, the tone of voice, and I think being having it half personal brand and then half the Love Assembly on its own, the tone of voice is a lot more conversational and approachable as compared to a website or travel publication that is very formal in the way that they talk. And so to have that mix of the two, that's where I was like, there's a difference in that. It's still quite professional, but then it's approachable because it's coming from a girl that could be your friend and just recommend these things. And so it's definitely that, knowing, and if you don't know, figure that out and create that to be able to, you know what brands that you want to collaborate with, know what projects that you want to work on, and what really just sets your heart on fire so that you can be excited to work on these things, because I think that's why we started, right? To be really passionate and grow things that we want to work on. So yeah, knowing your brand, and if not, then figuring that out.
Great. I'd like to, in these inspiration series, talk a little bit about your upbringing, because I often think that we're a product of our upbringing. And so I might just ask a few questions about growing up. So how did your upbringing influence what you're doing today?
How did my upbringing influence? I like to think of myself as, I wouldn't put it in a negative connotation, but just the black sheep of my family, because I've gone through lengths to really prove that this unconventional career is something that you can achieve in this day and age. And so my family have been very traditional and gone through the traditional paths in life, but I think that has definitely taught me to have drive in whatever you want to succeed in. And so my family came from the Philippines, I'm Filipino, and just having that sense of drive that my mum has to achieve her goals. And so I know that her goals was, to move to another country and to provide this for her family, a house, like simple things that where a house doesn't leak when it's raining, or for her kids to be able to wear shoes in the house. Those are simple things that my mum, I very much so remember, because you don't know your parents back then, but when you see what they've achieved for you, that's where I feel that it's come from for me, because these are things that I want to achieve for my family eventually when I have a family, and it's bigger than me. It's way bigger than me. It's something that I want to leave behind for them. So, yeah.
Okay, so do you think it was more your family or more the Filipino culture? I mean, I work with a number of Filipinos, and they're all pretty hardworking. So
yeah, possibly. We could say that for everyone that even goes to the Philippines, it's very much so about the hospitality and they're hardworking. So perhaps. Yeah. I'm just saying no for
I just
that.
embarrassed one of my staff. He told me not to talk about any Filipino things.
But they're positive things, so that's okay.
Who inspires you in life?
Anyone that really it just has the courage to do what they really want to do. Anyone? That could be you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the board, but how much of success was because of your own actions or because of the help of other people? Or even luck?
Even luck. Oh, there's this really, it's such a touchy subject because I think when you start something like this and then people say that you're lucky, it really gets to me because these things that happen will only ever happen because you have done something to create that. And so I don't ever think that anything is luck. I started from absolutely nothing, not knowing anything about the online world, not knowing anything about even e-commerce. It's just purely because I was interested in these things. And so because I was interested in them, I just expressed that on the internet. And the internet is such a big place that it allows so many other people to see what you're doing. And I think at first, it was definitely not luck or from other people because I didn't know anyone who was doing the same thing. And so even with brands, people ask me a lot about how do you work with these brands in such the early stages, and it was purely because I was proactive about things, and it was because I knew that these were the brands that I wanted to work with and I knew the value that I could provide to them. And so for people to sort of say, I guess, luck in a sense is like, I don't really think so, because a lot of people can be reactive to things. They can just say, I'm going to create this and wait for people to come my way. But there's so many other people on the internet. Why don't you be proactive and approach a brand and not be scared about that, but actually know what value you can bring to that company so that they can work with you. And that, I think, is being more proactive than reactive is something that's like, man, you got to hustle for that. That's not just going to come your way, you know. So definitely think self-motivation, determination, and being prepared to do those things is something that will create success, rather than relying on other people or other, you know, or being reactive to situations.
Okay. I was going to tell you that you're pretty lucky, but lucky I didn't tell you that.
If you define luck as it's when preparation meets opportunity, 100%. I'll agree that I'm lucky. But if it's other than that, and you just think that, yeah, you know, you fell into this and you're so lucky, then I'm like, no.
That's what I mean. What's the future for you? Where do you see the Love Assembly going?
There's a lot of places that I want to take the Love Assembly, and it's nowhere near where I want it to be. There's a lot of projects that I want to work on that are more in a collaborative sense with partnerships overseas. And then I will be working on a lot more workshops with some brands that are in the travel sort of industry, travel and photographic industry. And then eventually I want to take it into creative escapes, which encompasses everything to do with travel and photography and creativity and mindfulness. And also going into the space of even app development is something that I'm super interested in, and just really focusing more on products. So creating this product now, which is Wonder Love, the book, has just allowed me to be, you know, super proud of something and to be able to give it out in masses. And that's what I want to do with whether it's an app or whether it's creative workshops that are much bigger and larger. And then eventually into the travel sort of space that allows me to have something that's physical standing. That's probably as much as I'll say.
Okay, so it sounds like you have a direction for the future.
Definitely.
Which leads me to the second last question over there, but how do you know that path is the right one? Do you have that strength of conviction in terms of that direction, or, you know, are you just sort of relying on some hunches, or what is it?
All of my decisions up until this point is one, knowing what I want, but then also going with the flow and being able to let go. So if you told me, well, even like 2 years ago, that I'd be working on more workshops and doing more things online, I would have never thought that, because I was so focused on online, and I was like, this is what I want to be doing, because I am such an introvert and I feel so, comfortable in expressing my creativity online because it's on the internet. But now I'm so comfortable in doing workshops and having things offline, and I feel that it's definitely a direction that I want to go in because everyone is online now. And so to get that connection back and to do it offline is something that I would have never thought of a couple of years ago, but it's definitely where I am now and definitely something that I'm really interested in doing.
And I think in your book you talk about getting comfortable in being uncomfortable. I noticed in a lot of your photos and your posts, so often you're in the photo but you're disguised. You can't really see you clearly, or it's a side shot or from behind. I'm guessing that's intentional.
Yes.
And is that the introvert in you, or is it other reasons?
There's other reasons to it. It could be the introversion in me, but when I talk about the travel photography or any photography that I feature, I came up with a percentage, which is the 80-20 rule, and you'll see it in my book if you read it. It's because I had so much trouble with finding people to take a photo of me when I'm traveling on the road and getting that photo how I wanted it to be. And so when I gave, I get a photo and it'd just be a close-up of my face. And I'm like, I don't want a close-up of my face. I want that surrounding, and I want, people know that I'm in Paris or in Mexico or that sort of thing. And so then when I put a numeric value on it, that's when people started to understand that I want 80% of the atmosphere that I'm in and then 20% of me. And I think that when you look at a travel photograph, it's great when you see a landscape, but when you put a human element into that, people can relate to that even more. And I just go back to that whole psychological thing about marketing and business and how that all relates to each other. Because you can look at a photo and it's a beautiful landscape, but if you see a girl in there, and that's my target audience, she can relate to that. And that's something that I want to achieve in my photos, that it's not about me, it's a human element, and I'm the only person that I could work with, so I'm going with that.
Okay. When I was younger, one of my dreams was to be on Home and Away. So I wanted to be famous, but not too famous where I get mobbed in the streets. I don't know why I thought about that. But do you get recognised on the streets? Do you get stopped?
Yes, I have sometimes, and it's great because then they talk about my work, and that's what I love, because that's what I want to focus on and really want to have an impact on. So yes, I have, and it's always been, tailored to my work in some sort of way, which I love.
Okay. I might even allow some of the guests to ask some questions if they want to on the mic. We've probably got time for a few more, maybe. A couple more, okay. Lauren's the boss. Does anyone want to ask a direct question to Aubrey? Okay, Charlie.
Hi, Aubrey. Thanks for that.
Hi.
Hey, you said you're like an introvert.
Yes.
So how does the concept of, say, becoming more and more famous, as might be inevitable in this line of work, how does that sit with you?
How does it sit with
Being
me?
an introvert and having to expand your numbers.
Yeah, at first I was very anxious about that sort of stuff, and so I learned to take it away from myself, because there's I don't know if you've heard of this thing in Japanese, it's called Meraki. Have anyone heard of that? Where like your passion and your work collide, or like they come together, and that's your work. And so I feel that I do a lot of that in my work, and when you put a lot of yourself into your work, it becomes quite personal. And so that's what I was very anxious at first. But I think over the years I've learned to become an ambivert rather than an introvert, and that's where I knew that, yeah, I was proud of this, and what I'm creating, even though it won't resonate with everyone, and I don't aim to, it gives me that, I guess, I'm comfortable in that happening because I know that my message is way more than being famous and going on Home and Away. It is my message is a lot more clearer than that and out of my body, so yeah.
One more question? I think there's one over there. Did you want to ask a question?
I put it up there.
Oh, okay. Which one was it?
That was the bottom line.
The bottom, okay.
Social
Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks, Emma. Social
What do you think the next social influencer trend is? So, I guess the influencer space is a really tricky one because there's, especially with content, like I like to focus on the content that people produce, and there can be a social media influencer that will create content that is not of quality as opposed to if a brand was to create it. So I'll give you an example. I'm working with a beauty brand, and they were quite particular in the way that they wanted their beauty products to be shot. And if you look at the beauty products that they shot, I've looked it up, and they were basically of girls' faces and holding up the product so that you can see the branding. So it was very much so like just smiling and taking a photo. And that's not something that, you can reach thousands and thousands of followers and using that product, but I don't think that that's something that has that much creative direction behind it because it doesn't tell a story, it doesn't have a caption to really create a story behind it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think there's two sides of it, and the side that I'm focusing more on is really the content production side of things. And so for the Love Assembly, I like to create a story behind that. So with that beauty brand, then I would choose how to use that while traveling and create a story of, if you're going on the road and you need particular products to pack in beauty, then you can pack these products, and purely not just a photo that shows the branding and everything. So I think with the content production side is really interesting because then personal brands can produce content for other brands, and then that creates a media outlet for other brands and not just necessarily for themselves. I hope that answers your question.
Great, thanks a lot for that, Aubrey, for that inspiring chat. And inspiring, I guess, all of us to follow our dreams. So we'll be attending the next audition for Home and Away. And you'll be hanging around for a little bit afterwards for a chat if people want to chat to you and
definitely
make a selfie and so forth. Okay, fantastic. Please give Aubrey